That British grit, that's a great phrase.
Bri'ish grit.
British?
British.
British, okay.
How many of you have a F*** You to Life playlist? Just raise your hand. Yeah, most of you. I do too.
Well, now in the top few songs, the elite, clustered near the top of Mount Fuck You, is the cut One on One by Battleborn. Battleborn are a relatively new British heavy metal band,
And I had the pleasure of meeting and interviewing them at Epic Fest in Denmark in April of this year, 2025. Battleborn had the first set. They opened the festival. Later in the day, I was leaving the main building, going outside to have some nicotine. I passed a dude walking back in. His t-shirt said The Warriors, that late 70s movie. And I said, because I love that movie, I said, that's a great shirt. I dig that. He said, oh, well, thank you very much. Isn't it such a good movie? Imagine his responses in a British accent. I said, yeah, oh, I'm Wayne, by the way. And he goes, Wayne, metal professor? And I said, yeah. He said, well, I'm Jack Reynolds. I'm the singer for Battleborn. We have an interview with you. And I'm like, fuck, you are. Hey, I didn't recognize you. Out of context. That was my introduction to Jack Reynolds, the vocalist for Battleborn. Tom Odell is in Battleborn. He is a guitarist. Will Kerr is the other guitarist. Charles Lamacroft Parrott is the drummer. And Matt Hudson plays the bass. They have 2 albums out. I encourage you to go check out both of them. They seem like real nice guys, very well spoken, as you'll see.
Unfortunately, and you're not supposed to apologize for your videos, but I'm going to anyway, their soft-spokenness was at odds with the tremendously fun time that so many other people were having in this huge-ass room where the interviews take place. People having a great time that sounded like sometimes it involved knocking piles of metal cookware, clattering to its demise. So I did what I could with the audio. Good luck with that. Enjoy the interview. Battleborn.
So you're a relatively new band. How did you get started?
Bill and I had gone to a festival in Germany called Wacken Open Air, or Wacken, and on the drive back we basically just thought, heavy metal's really great, and we could do this, and we wrote a song called Bring the Metal Back on that drive back. So like a 2-day drive back across Europe to the UK, and we'd written these songs. Oh, this is a good fun song. It was just everything we wanted a festival banger to be. And it just, from then on, has got really out of hand. And here we are.
To kind of go even further back as well, it kind of comes from a frustration of always seeing the European festivals as like the place to be. You know, we've always got to travel long distances to go and see heavy metal in its purest form. And it's like, we want to bring it back with us. We want to have it in our own country. And sometimes if you don't see the difference, you've just got to be the difference. And that's part of what was the inspiration at the beginning.
I really like your sound. That combination of like the British metal sound and that European metal sound.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard anything quite like it. How did you achieve it? I mean, was it conscious?
I think in a way, we all love Judas Priest, and bands like Manowar, that Maiden, I guess, that kind of classic 80s heavy metal sound. But I think the European scene has really been dominated by bands doing the synth-led stuff, so bands like Beast in Black, Battle Beast, like Stratovarius, that have lots of keyboards going on. We've really enjoyed both sounds and kind of thought there's something here that we can do to forge a sound that's our own, but still pays tribute to everything we enjoy.
There's like a rawness of like British grit that's always been there, and it's something that isn't really present in European metal, but conversely British metal can be a bit too abrasive perhaps, and it doesn't have the polish and the finesse. So it's about trying to combine those two factors, and I think, you know, we're constantly on a journey of discovering what that looks like, but yeah, it's been conscious.
That British grit, that's a great phrase.
That's British grit.
British, okay. The Endless Grey. Man, that was a risk, more or less a pure ballad.
Yeah.
But it works.
Yeah.
What was the thinking behind including that?
Well, there was quite a lot of discussion actually in the Battleborn camp about is the right number of ballads for an album 0 or 1. and in the end, we been working on a couple of them. We really liked that one in particular, and we thought we'll roll the dice. So we put a lot of work into that composition, all of the arrangement around it, into the lyrics in particular, and
Just on the lyrics, like we wrote that song in lockdown. I don't remember which one, but one of them.
Yeah.
And I know Jack.
yeah, it was a really rough time for me. So my parents live out in Italy, and I couldn't see them. Obviously, we were stuck in the UK, and it was really hard. They're quite elderly, and I remember thinking, if they caught COVID, I wouldn't be able to go and see it. Maybe I've already seen them for the last time. There'd be nothing I could do, and so a lot of that emotion kind of came into that song. I think so. It's quite an important one for me.
We included it on one of our previous tours. We played it live, and I think we knew it was potentially a risk doing it live because it would bring the energy to a different place. And actually, the audience responded really, really well to it. And there's the great moment where the rest of the band kind of come to the back of the stage, and Jack's out the front and leads that vocal line, and it gave him a chance, I think, to really push what we do live, and it actually was a big success on that tour. We had a lot of people come to us and say they were really happy that we'd included that track.
I think it's not one. Like when you ask people what their favourite Battleborn song is, it's not often The Endless Grey, but when someone says that my favourite song is The Endless Grey, you can always see how much it means to them that is the track they resonate with, which is that means it's a special song, I think.
Metal means so much to so many people. Is there a particular band or album or song that really had an emotional impact on you or helped you through a tough time or something?
I can.
Yeah,
Let's go this way so I have time to think.
Okay, I'll go. Yeah, for me it was Iron Maiden's "Peace of Mind." It was, it was life changing. You when you first hear something that's that impactful, it almost kind of carves itself into your general psyche, and you become. I think for many people that find heavy metal, you become a lifer. It starts to define so much about you, and it gives you. It actually becomes quite a teacher, in terms of how you navigate your way through life. And that record was just one that did that for me. So yeah, definitely Iron Maiden's "Peace of Mind."
Yeah, I think for me, a bit different, but for different reasons, because the first one that really resonated with me was Slayer's "God Hates Us All" of that album. And I think the reason why I had quite a difficult childhood, for various reasons that I don't need to go into, but I guess I struggled to connect with certain emotions, and that album was just so raw and so aggressive, and it just spoke to me for how I was feeling internally, and I guess it helped me process a lot of that, and it just really, and now I consider myself pretty chill, and
He is, yeah.
But it stayed with me. It really stayed with me, and basically that was it. From that point, it went from Slayer to, I suppose, a bit on the more tame side of metal, I suppose.
Yeah, mine's a bit of a rogue one as well. Similar reasons to Charlie. It's so the album is Hollow Crown by the band Architects, which is quite a different genre and sound of metal compared to what we do in Battleborn, but it's an album that really spoke to me as a teenager, and the final track, Hollow Crown, is such an emotional hard hitter that I remember, whenever I was going through a dark time as a teenager, I would always put this song on. And for a long time I didn't listen to that album, and then I went through a divorce 3 years ago, and it was a real strong emotional time for me, a real period of grief, and I remembered that album, and I just put it on again and thought, you know what, there's never really been an album that spoke to me like this, and it just, the emotion clearly in the singer, you have to listen to it, but the final song in that, it's about someone going through this journey, and having that process of letting go, and that's all part of grief, and it's just, whenever I go through a tough time, I check on that album.
I'm sorry you had to go through that experience. I'm a two-timer. It sucks. It's bad.
For me, I think it's got to be Painkiller by Judas Priest, and there's not really something I can point to lyrically or like in terms of the message. It's just the energy and the drive behind every single note of that album always hits me right in the chest, you know, and any time I put it on, I feel like I'm hearing it for the first time. It's so ingrained in my brain.
My turn. I came to metal quite, I think, relatively late. I only really got into metal when I was 17 or 18, and I had a sort of a roommate at school who would constantly play Avenged Sevenfold's Nightmare, and I was like, before that, listening to, I don't know, the Beatles was the closest I come to metal. Like, they've got guitars, right? But the first time I heard Nightmare, and it's got the atmosphere, the twin lead guitars, the big chorus, something about it was just like, oh, hang on. And then I went out on my way to go and listen to the whole album. It was just like, this is blowing my mind that an album could be this. And I don't go back to that album very much now, but if I ever do hear it, I still get that same kind of, I'm a 17-year-old rediscovering this whole thing that I didn't know existed before. And it's not necessarily the type of music I like now, but it's still so special because of what it's done for me.
When did you, or how did you, or what prompted you to go from listener to creator?
I think probably like for many people, you just get that feeling of, I want to do this. Like for me, I heard this sound on a piece of my record, and I was like, what is that sound? I want to make that sound, and it turned out to be the bass guitar. And begged my parents for one. They got me one. And they said, "Oh, you're going to have lessons." I said, "No, I want to do it myself." And I taught myself. And I think it's just that lifer feeling. You suddenly connect to something, and you have to be involved in some way. And then
I really resonate with that. It's very like, it just happens. It's like a spiritual experience. Even you listen to it, and there's something that inside you want to create it.
Yeah.
You want to do it.
Like some of my first ever metal concerts, I remember going to them and just seeing those people on the stage performing and putting on a show, and just being like, that's what I need to do.
Yeah.
And just sort of knowing. And originally I wanted to be a singer, but so I learned guitar instead. But that's always been the goal. And then playing a show like this to 600, 700 people, all going mental. That was.
Well, they were nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's finally like, yes, we're on a stage doing this. Let's keep doing it.
For me as well, making that transition from a listener to a doer, friendship was such a big part of it. I had friends who were interested in guitar and interested in starting bands, and that was sort of what clicked in my head of, yeah, we could actually do this, you know. Before that, it was just, I'm someone who really likes listening to metal, and then that sort of collective, collaborative drive made it real for me. And I mean, I consider all of these guys my friends, so it's kind of stuck with me. That camaraderie is really related to doing it in my brain.
Okay. Well, speaking of camaraderie, the idea of the metal community, is that a thing?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
absolutely.
You couldn't get the feeling that you're having at this festival, for example, I don't think in any other genre. Like, the atmosphere is just universally positive. People are down there having fun. They're bumping into people that they met from all corners of the globe, all through metal, and it's unique.
It's not even just at shows either. It's like just out in public. I remember many years ago I had to cut my hair short for work, and then I suddenly missed this feeling of community, because before I'd walk past a hairy metalhead looking chap, and you'd get a nod, and you get a nod in response. You know, there's like this
Yeah.
giant like thing, and then I'd nod at these people. I never got the nod in response, and I felt like I'd been ejected. You know, at this point. And like genuinely, I didn't feel part of it.
Should have cut your hair then.
Yeah.
Well,
should have quit your job.
I did quit
Oh,
the job. Grew it back, but yeah. So it's so much more than just gigs. You know, it's just outside of it. You just identify with.
I think with the general metal community as well, I think it's quite rare for someone to be, I only like this type of metal. Usually most metalers have a very kind of broad scope of different genres they like, and also they tend to be very very passionate for all their other hobbies. I think it's a bit of a sweeping statement, but we often tend to be quite hobby people, and we like almost like lore, whether it be about bands, whether it be about films, books. And I think we crave things with a lot of depth. I think a lot of people that like metal in all of its different forms, they often use it as a kind of emotional outlet, as the guys have said, and it's a way of bonding with other people through it. It's very cathartic, it's very uplifting, it's positive. And so I think that metalers tend to have a deeper connection with their music taste, and I think it bonds everybody that way, that you will understand that same zeitgeistal being and feeling.
This is the first festival I've attended, and it's the first time that I've gotten to interact with the artists as well as the fans.
Yeah.
And something, I don't know what I was expecting, but everybody, like all the artists that I've met, like you guys, and I talked with some of the guys from Majestica, and I've just run into people, like I ran into, like the bass player from, Merciful Fate.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I just stopped her on the sidewalk. I didn't know who she was, and I just asked her a question. But it's like the community, it just goes, I don't want to say from the top down, but it's just performers and fans and everybody.
We're all fans too. Every artist is a fan of metal and has started in that way, and so I think we don't see ourselves as any different to any of the people down there, even though we're upstairs. But we're all huge fans of all the bands here, so
It's true.
it is all one.
The vibe at, say it's a metal festival where there's camping, and if you were to walk around middle of the night in the campsite in the normal area and compare that to walking around chatting to people, making friends in the campsite in the artist area, it's exactly the same. Everyone who's there is a fan of metal, they're a fan of the music, they're a fan of the community.
I don't think I've ever been to a metal show where anybody has been a dick to me.
No.
Yeah.
Well, if you fall over in a metal mosh pit, you get picked up. If you fall over in a mosh pit in any other genre, you're kicked and you have a bad time. My brother's not into metal, and he can confirm that. He said to me.
What's your purpose for your music? I mean, what effect do you want it to have in the world?
I think being entertainers is a big part of what we want to do, but I think in itself that gets a bit overlooked in its purpose as it is, because you kind of think of like a clown on the stage, but it's, for us, being entertainers is about directing people to having a wonderful experience, giving people a break from reality or a break from the standard experience. It's part of the passion that drives us.
I remember distinctly there was this teenager when we played at KK Steel Mill last year, and she very timidly asked me for a drumstick, and I sort of gave her that, and she looked absolutely chuffed and over the moon. It just took me back to when I was that age, and finding a pick from Dragon Force on the floor, and I was like, oh my god, I've got Herman Lee's guitar pick, and being on the other side of that is just so gratifying, and be able to give that experience to someone else is just wonderful.
I think people need heroes in their life, and I think for so many people in metal, so many other musicians are heroes to them. They're almost like superheroes. I remember seeing my first concert. I saw Danzig, and I couldn't really believe he was real, because suddenly this person who I'd loved for years was there in front of me, and it was incredible. And I think people just love to have those positive role models, and I think we all think that our music hopefully has a positive experience for people, that it gives them something uplifting, and I think positive is the key really for us.
It's definitely what we're trying to achieve in our latest single, One on One. It's all about being that coach in the corner, that voice of positivity. You've got this.
I was talking with Tommy Johansson from Majestica earlier, and he was saying he said he can tell the difference instantly between Italian power metal and Swedish power metal and German power metal. And I can't, because I'm really new to the European metal scene. How has British culture, do you think, shaped the sound of British metal?
It just sounds like everything's raining all the time, doesn't it?
I think we love an underdog. The underdog story is a very British mentality. we don't like to see things that are wrong, and we also don't want to be over assertive in many ways. And we you know, a lot of people in Britain love football, and they love it when a team comes from a lower league and comes, you know, up to the Premier League. And I think people love that in their music. People love discovering a band and going to see them when there's 5 people in the audience, and then 50 and 500. And yeah, that underdog story is a very British thing. Overcoming adversity. It's not something we don't necessarily talk about it that much, but I think Britain as a nation is quite good in moments of crisis, despite us being a little bit reserved.
Go back to what you were saying before, Matt. It's like that understated hero. I think about someone like Tony Iommi.
Yeah.
We were saying in the van the other day, like if he walks into a venue, like people might not notice him because he's kind of like doesn't have like this big aura, big like chest out. He's quite like understated.
Yeah.
His interviews are all quite gentle.
We played KK Steelmill in Wolverhampton in October, and KK Downing from Judas Priest just was in the back.
Yeah.
Like, no one was bothering him because like people might not have noticed him. He was just there in his hat. And we were like, oh, that's KK Downing, from the man who wrote some of the greatest riffs ever, watching us play heavy metal. We noticed.
Yeah.
We did.
Yeah.
I just have to say, how fucking cool is that?
It was
Yeah.
awesome.
We got a photo
Dream come
afterwards.
true.
Yeah, we chatted with him a little bit after. It was lovely.
Yeah, I was just like shaking his hand, like, hello.
I fell into him.
yeah, you nearly killed him.
Now, how many people can say that? Really? You know, that's
dream come true.
cool.
He was pushed.
Okay, well, I won't take up much more of your time, but I have to ask this because I'm a guitar player, a shitty one. But Will and Tom, how do you guys split the duties?
Oh, he's better than me. So
Next question.
But no, the caveat is that I'm a better singer. So I have a lot more I'm the lead backing vocalist. So I have a lot more singing harmonies to do. So often Will's playing a lead part whilst I'm doing a singing part, which does make it quite easy to naturally split it up. But also I can't play that. So
We play to our
You're a
strengths.
solid rhythm player there, to be fair.
not just good enough. But yeah, playing to our strengths is absolutely what we do.
Yeah.
Even in the non-musical side of the band, there's so much admin being in a metal band.
Yeah.
But luckily we know what each of us are good at, and so we really try and make sure that everyone is contributing but doing the bits that they're going to be able to do the best.
Yeah, absolutely.
Other than pop, it seems, this is just my perception and maybe I'm mistaken, but it seems that other than pop, worldwide, metal is the most common genre that you find. I mean, for example, I learned about a band. They are Indonesian, Voice of Bacaplot. It's 3 young Muslim women who just make the most kick-ass metal, and apparently have taken all kinds of heat for it from their culture. I mean, to the point where one of them has tried to commit suicide multiple times. Yeah, but they're finally making it onto the world stage and said, why do you think it is that metal is so beloved, at least by some people, no matter where you go?
It's the community as much as anything.
Yeah.
Like the community that we've got here is worldwide. I'm always finding bands from all across the world. It's like, oh, they're a Brazilian band, an Indonesian band, like even like a Kenyan black metal band. Like metal is everywhere, and even if it's underground, it is still there. The community is still there, and everyone who buys into that knows that they're buying into that worldwide community, and I think that's why it's endured for decades, half a century at this point, and hopefully always will, because otherwise we'll be very unemployed.
There's a lot of emotional depth that I think comes in a lot of heavy metal, all these different genres, and it's a way of other people seeing that someone else feels the same way that I may do, or something like that, and you can recognise the emotional qualities and empathy and sympathies, that other people are trying to get out, themselves, or connect with other people, and that transcends borders, language, and all that kind of thing. It's quite primal in many ways.
You'll get musicians who, whether it be through lyrics or through collaborative effort of a song, or just through their instrument, whatever that is, like for me, drums, sublimating these whatever emotions it is into your instrument can be so powerful for you personally. And then when you get that recorded and put out to people, then that can only resonate with other people.